Second edition of the College Football Playoff rankings are out. College Game Day is headed to Pittsburgh and a couple of huge showdowns in the SEC, all among the six-pack of picks. This is the College Game Day Podcast, the day after Veterans Day. I hope you had a wonderful Veterans Day. And man, what an amazing scene on the Pat McAfee show, speaking of Veterans Day. With the Paris Island thing. That was a great moment as well. So a shout out there to that for that scene with the Marines there.
Great job by Pat recognizing the troops. He always goes.
It really was, wasn't it? It was really
the setting
cool.
was great. The vibe was great. Yeah, great job by Pat.
It was just tremendous. And now that will carry us right into this weekend of football. And before we get there, the stage set by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee last night, Pete, with their second unveiling of the rankings. And I think that there was a thought last week in the initial ones that perhaps Texas A&M should have been higher. Mm-hmm. Some people believe that. And then after Indiana's struggle against Penn State, though epic and iconic comeback to win, that maybe the Aggies would wedge their way in between Ohio State and Indiana, if not move to the top. Because, I think the quality of their wins in terms of more of them probably at the very least matches Ohio State's and Indiana's for that matter. But the committee left them where they were, and I've got no problem with that. I have this philosophy this time of year, and it's really pretty simple. And you could even say it's borrowed from Al Davis. Just win, baby. If you've put yourself in this position, you are probably going to run into a game like Indiana ran into against Penn State. Yeah. And as you pointed out rightly on Monday, Penn State still has NFL talent on that side of the ball. They had a last stand, a big opportunity to make something positive and memorable about this season. They played their tails off, and Indiana made the winning plays. And I would not have wanted to see them be punished for that, but I would have been okay had they said, we're not punishing them for it. A&M has just done something that is deserving of moving ahead of them. I considered doing it. I'm sure a lot of people in the room did. What did you think of the ultimate decision?
I'm fine with it. Look, winning, if you're ever discredited for winning in-state college Pennsylvania, and look, they're not good. They're 0-6 in the Big Ten, right? But I'm going to hijack this slightly and go back to a conversation I had with Scott Dolson, the Indiana athletic director, this spring. Basically, I was there around the combine, and I said, "Did you ever think after you hired Sig that the most controversial thing about your program would be you didn't play tough enough out of conference? Do you ever think that was like an Indiana football problem?" Your resume wouldn't be playoff worthy because of your lackluster out of conference. And now it's like they didn't beat Penn State by enough. Like, think about that. Mm-hmm. They'd never won there, I believe. So, because didn't Sig say that
this team has never played there, Pete? No, Signetti said in the pregame. Did you see that?
I did.
We've never played there.
He stays on brand, forever on brand. It was pretty cool to see the emotion he had after the game. He said, never seen anything like that. It was very cool. So no, I have no issue. I would have no issue if Texas A&M was one, right? Like, I just think these are three great teams. They're all going to get buys, unless something pretty drastic happens, and they are the class. Who do you think should be the Heisman leader, Rece? Because thinking of these three teams, I thought about this week. I think
Fernando Mendoza.
Okay.
He's had the moment. Now, that's not to say maybe Marcel Reed is going to have the moment later. Mm-hmm. Maybe Julian Sayin or Jeremiah Smith have the moment in Ann Arbor. Mm-hmm. Maybe. But on November 12th, it should be Fernando Mendoza. I mean, in terms of the leader, in my judgment.
Yeah. So. There are three very different resumes. It's going to be an interesting race if it ends up being these three, because Reed is like total productivity. He's not going to lead the nation right, because of the diverse skill set and how he leads. They call him the gingerbread man, by the way. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, that came out.
Why?
That came out the other day. Hold on. You can't catch me. The nursery rhyme says, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man.
That's hilarious.
You could have some fun with that on game day, Rece. See, I'm writing your scripts for you. Yeah.
I think I can. Yeah. Look at you. Look at you go.
Hey, if anybody should be well-versed in childhood books, it's me on this podcast. Okay?
That's a very fair point.
Read the Smeds and the Smoos last night. It was tremendous. So the gingerbread man has a wildly different skill set. So Mendoza has the moment, and he's the best prospect. for this class. Sayan just has like the ruthless efficiency with all the weapons, right? Like 81%. Mm-hmm. I mean, are we looking at like Colt McCoy territory for like the best efficiency season in the history of the sport?
Well, Bo Nix.
Oh,
Bo
yeah,
Nix
that's
has
right.
the record,
That's
and he's got a really good chance of breaking it.
So we're in, you're in that rare air, right? That's something else. And I know Mike Elko doesn't like to talk about the past, but Reed has come in and lifted a program where it hasn't been to heights where it hasn't been in a very long time. They've never been in the SEC championship. They haven't won a league title since 1998.
That's right.
And then
Big 12.
Yes. And
Sir Parker.
There we go.
Brandon Stewart.
There we go.
Yeah.
And they've never made the college football playoff. So, like, they are on track to do most of those things. Like, you can't give them the SEC title, but they're going to make the playoff for almost for certain at this point. So, to be the change agent, the face of that, combined with a lot of other really good players, by the way. I think it's fascinating. So anyway, I did not want to talk about the rankings, but I just was looking at those three and had a couple Heisman conversations, and I just thought that was I think Reed maybe deserves a little more buzz. That's just my take.
You know what the issue is? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not an issue, and really this is something that is spread across the sport right now with these conference championship games and compiling numbers and so forth. It's that, well, just take Texas A&M. They're not the only one. This is really across most of the conferences. A&M does not play in the regular season. They do not play Alabama. They do not play Georgia. Mm-hmm. They do not play Ole Miss. They do not play Vanderbilt, and they do not play Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Those are all the teams, right at the top. And I'm looking. I don't think they play Tennessee. They don't play Tennessee either. Wow. So they play Texas out of the top half of the league. Look, they're good, man. Yeah. I'm not saying they're a product of the schedule. Don't misunderstand that at all. Look, they played LSU. That looked like in the preseason play. LSU played Missouri. Mm-hmm. So and LSU looked like that would be a representative game. But you've got this in every league, and I think it's one of the things that. Challenges the selection committee when they start evaluating teams and records. Okay, who did you play? Who did you beat? Look at overall schedule strength. And I think it underscores my position that you shouldn't be separating conference and non-conference schedule. Just look at the 12. Once you get to the end, and really as the season goes along, just look at the games that have been played. Mm-hmm. Conferences are so big, you can't control all of that right now. So was it good? Was it bad? Intent, that's great. Oregon scheduled Oklahoma State when they were good Gundy. When they got them, they weren't. Yeah. Sorry. You don't get extra credit for that. Mm-hmm. And so it just should be the old thing. The schedule is what it is, not what it was intended to be. I mean, you've even got the same thing like in the American right now with North Texas. I don't think North Texas plays some of the other. They've already played USF and they got housed, but and they've played Navy, but they miss some of the teams. East Carolina misses some of the teams, and they're still in the mix because of it. So I think it creates a challenge with the rankings a little bit because you have to, when you start trying to find comparative games. So just look at the overall strength of schedule. We spent a lot of time last night talking about the possibilities in the ACC. Mm-hmm. We touched on. I felt good about that. You got the Wheel of Destiny in there, Rece. That made you happy. I know it. I know. I did that on purpose. We touched on it a little bit Monday. Look, the American has a better percentage chance. These playoff predictors are a little wonky to me sometimes. I know people work very hard on them and they simulate games. It says right now, I think the American has a better shot than the ACC, and a lot of that is because of where the standings are and who plays whom. And Miami has a long shot to getting into the championship game in the ACC. But I don't think the ACC is going to get left out, just as I said Monday. But it's not impossible for the ACC to get left out. It would require almost certainly having James Madison hop over them. Now, I think it is more likely that the ACC champion gets left out because of that than the entire conference gets left out. Because if Miami If Miami can win out, Miami's going to have a good at-large case. And I'll tell you another thing. If Pittsburgh wins out, Pittsburgh's going to have a good at-large case, whether they make it or not. So there are a couple of teams, regardless of whether they make the championship game, that will have very good cases as at-large teams. So I don't think the ACC will be completely on the outside looking in. But the thing that will infuriate the SEC particularly, and maybe the Big Ten to a lesser degree, depending on how they finish, is if it comes about that the ACC gets two, because they get a I don't want to say weaker champion, but they get a non-Miami champion and then get Miami as an at-large. They're going to go, wait a minute.
Which I actually think there's a better chance of that than them getting left out. Like if you look at where Miami is right now, and just the natural attrition that could happen in front of them. Now, look, we can't count on Miami winning all the games, right? They've proven time and time again.
That's correct.
Especially against inferior competition. That they, that is not necessarily going to.
And they've got a tough game going to Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah. Too. That late November Northeast trip, we've seen Miami turtle in that a bunch of times over the years.
You know what should happen, Pete? And this is something that I've been consistent on for quite some time. To make the playoff, whether a champion or not, you should have to meet a threshold. There should be a floor for which you are considered. You can make that a formula. You can make that you simply have to be ranked. I would suggest you need to say they need to be ranked in the top 20. But that could be so nebulous. I would say, okay, you have to be ranked in the top 25. If you have a champion, group of five or not, I won't make exceptions for them. Your champion, if it is going to be included in the mix in the college football playoff, should have to meet a threshold. If you want to make it a combination of ranked versus computer numbers, power ranking, fine, go ahead. But there should be some floor. And, look, I'm sorry to say this. I can't get behind Duke in the playoff if Duke runs the table and wins the ACC championship. Love Manny Diaz. Mensa's great. They're not a playoff team. And they're not going to be. Now, look, they may lose Saturday and all of this Duke talk's over. They have to play Virginia. They've certainly proven beyond a shadow of a doubt they can lose.
They're wildly inconsistent.
So they've proven that. The one thing we know about them is they can lose. As our buddy David Pollack says, they don't just shoot themselves in the foot. They empty the barrel until they shoot off all of the toes on both feet. And I would love to steal that from Pollack and use it as my own, but it's very funny, and I want to give him credit for that. But it's hilarious, and it's also true.
See toes, get toes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Give David a little shout out.
Great podcast. See toes, get toes. But it's one of the fascinating things in the early rankings because there's so many more rankings to come and more games to be played. And you often say if you're looking for ranking outrage, this is probably not the podcast for you because let's see what happens next week. But that is the most fascinating part of the discussion to me for week 2 is what are we going to do with the ACC? Did you think it was a course correction with Miami or just a result of Virginia and Louisville losing?
A little bit of both. I just think, Miami has a good resume. They have a good team. They passed the eye test. Football people will like them. They played well this week. They dominated a inferior opponent. So I do think it was some of that. Can I give a little conversation that you could be having with your guys on the desk here in the next couple of weeks that I think is going to be real? So say Pittsburgh wins this weekend. What's the line in that game? Do we know?
I think it's a touchdown.
That's about right.
Continue on with your point. I'll get you.
Does the conversation of Pitt change because they've changed so drastically with Mason Heinschel at quarterback? They've won every game so far. When they inserted him, remember they inserted him at BC, and we were somewhere for game day that morning. And
it's 11 and a half, by the way.
11 and a half. Okay.
11 and a half,
right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's more than that.
Interesting. And they've won now 5 in a row. He's smashing, he's on early Marino-like pace. Opposing coaches to me have just raved about this kid and what he's brought. So if they conquer the gauntlet, which is Notre Dame home, at Georgia Tech, Miami at home, so 3 top 16 teams in, do Do we rank them by the AP poll here? Or do we?
College football
so
playoff
16.
rankings.
Yeah, so Tech is 16. Yeah. So if you go that and beat 3 top 16 teams, like, your case has to be radically different when you supercharge it with the quarterback, right?
I'm going to present a counter argument to it.
Please do. We're not on here to agree.
You're right. The intangible quality of improving the team is beyond question. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to question that at all. Have you looked at the comparative stats?
No.
Okay. Mason Heinzel completes 64% of his passes. Eli Holstein completed a little over 62% of his passes. Yards per attempt, Holstein actually a half yard better than Mason Heinzel. Touchdown passes in 6 games. Heinzel's thrown 12 in 6 games. Holstein's thrown 11.
We're like 6 against some like Duquesne. Can we get Duquesne out of there for the comparative stats?
Okay. All right, maybe so, but I'm just saying that overall, and the quarterback, not the QBR, but the passer rating for Holstein is slightly better. Now, I'm not arguing for Holstein. I don't want that to be misunderstood. What I'm saying is if you're not going to be able to base this solely on numbers. Yeah. I don't think you're going to base it more on the intangibles.
Yes.
On the intangibles that he's brought, which are beyond dispute. Yeah. I mean, he's been sensational. I don't want that to come across poorly. But
Holstein also had a little turnover bug. You know what I mean? Like he
But that's what I'm saying is the turnover. I mean, now I'd have to look up the fumbles to be honest with you. But in terms of interceptions, it's only one more. Okay. So I think I think it's more intangibles than anything else. But your point about the fact that overall numbers, Holstein did have a lot of touchdown passes in their first 2 non-conference games and had a miserable. The stats don't show how miserable it really was against West Virginia.
Yes. He got
and then
benched
he had the
in
turnovers against Louisville.
Yeah.
So it's. I'm not saying it's not the right move. I'm not saying it's not the same. I'm just saying that you will have to dig into the weeds, which they've shown the desire to do with red zone touchdowns and defensive line play, which I kind of like. Yeah. I'm glad they say it, but the overall numbers are similar, but the vibe of the team is way different because of when Heinzel has compiled the numbers and also the energy he's brought to the team, which has been beyond dispute.
A random ranking. Mac Rhodes appears to actually answer your questions, which may make him the first committee chair to actually do that. Now, I'm not knocking the other committee chairs, but a lot of them were tight and evasive, and you were going to ask one very specific thing, and they were going to answer it one very specific way. Clearly, he seems pretty loose and confident.
Which he's been very good in the role, and the one thing that I hope people understand about Mac's answers, because we as a culture love to seize on the minutia, on the one little thing. And but what about that? He can't take every question I give and give the full dissertation on what the discussion was in the room. He has to distill it down to hopefully a digestible answer. So just because he says that Texas Tech, for instance, I asked him about them in the top 4. The Texas Tech, they want to see them score more touchdowns in the red zone. Yeah. You could easily turn around and say, well, this team, they allow too many touchdowns in the red zone. He's not saying this is the only thing. He's saying, we like them. This is good. If you're looking for the thing that splits the hair, between Texas Tech being, not in the position right now to get a bye and being number 6, or they're in position to get one, but not a bye in the projected bracket at the moment. He's saying, here is a thing that our football judgment people have noticed about them that they think might not be as good as the other ones. It doesn't mean they aren't better in other areas. And that would apply, way down the board. And the reason I trust this, and it's something I think there is, even though we say it over and over and over and over and over again, there's a perception that there aren't really knowledgeable football people in the room, and that is not true. You've got Martin Antonio in there, you've got Chris Alt in there, many, like 6 of the 12 people on the committee, with Randall McDaniel, also a football guy, stepping aside for personal reasons for this year, and he'll return next year if everything goes well. But they have 12 people in there, and half of them coached or played or both at this level or in the college football level. And, they know. Now, you mentioned earlier, that is going to create the idea they're going to like Miami. I mean, but isn't that okay? I mean, that's why we have the committee. If not, just give me a formula and be done with it.
Yes. Yeah. I completely agree. Like, they're in there to have football opinions. They know a lot about football. They watch that from knowing a lot of people on the committee over there. They watch a tremendous amount of football, and quite frankly, they watch a tremendous amount of mediocre football when it comes down to it, because they have to know their leagues and their teams and all that stuff. So they are working. They are most definitely working. But I would say that the first 2 weeks have been relatively controversy free.
Yeah.
You could manufacture some if you really wanted to, and I'm sure people are. But to me, it's like, oh, okay, this is sort of a keep it in the fairway week for the committee, and they're going to keep rolling.
Duke, Pittsburgh take care of itself.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech will take care of itself.
Yeah.
I think to wrap up this ACC portion of it before I turn to another team that I think is fascinating that is off the radar right now, but it really has a chance. This is going. The perception of the ACC is a big deal. I know what Narduzzi said, that he'd rather lose 110-10 or whatever to Notre Dame and win the next two games. I get that, because that's their path to the playoff. I understand it. I don't know about saying it that way, but
that's
it was
pat,
still,
though. I don't mind.
Yeah,
That's
it was
yeah.
very. It was good content,
Yes.
as you say.
Yes.
So, but the one thing that game and the Georgia Tech game will do, it will cement the perception of the ACC. If Pittsburgh loses 110-10 and then does, in fact, win those next two games, well, of course, and then one of those would be against Georgia Tech. But if they do that and then say Georgia Tech doesn't beat Georgia, then I think you've got a really tough putt right there, because you've got an SMU team that's lost non-conference games. You got Duke that we've talked about. And really, you're hanging your hat on Miami, and you don't know if Miami can get in the championship game.
Yeah.
It's an odd place to be. But the positive side of that, let Pittsburgh win Saturday. Let Georgia Tech beat Georgia. Mm-hmm. Then everything changes.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
right?
the ACC's got a lot left in front of it still. Like, I'm not leaving them out in the wilderness behind James Madison in South Florida. Like, I think the ACC's going to be fine. There's all
I'm doing, Pete, is putting it out into the universe in case it happens. We try to get ahead of things.
That's fair.
So you know what else I'm going to get ahead of? USC.
I thought you were going to go there.
USC, man. I mean, I'm not. Look, I'm not predicting it. I'm not all in on the Trojans. I think they're getting better, and they're improving seemingly, rapidly. They have trouble on the road. They're going to Oregon. I get that.
Well, what about Iowa this week?
Well, they have Iowa this week, but I was just kind of looking at the places where they struggle. They got
they've struggled at the lines, man. I want to see them really bow up. Iowa is sort of the old school Big Ten bully, right? And that's the team that Lincoln Riley hasn't been able to beat. So I want to,
I don't know, man. They hammered Michigan.
They did beat Michigan. I don't.
Yeah, they hammered them.
Yeah.
So
I'm not so sure this Michigan team has it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's another team sitting right
they
there.
Are.
They can win their way in if they win their games. Yep. So, but SC is interesting because they have Iowa this week. Committee likes Iowa.
Yes.
Lost to Oregon and kept them ranked, as they should have, by the way. Then they go to Oregon, and they finish at UCLA. Now, you read through a lot of the stuff, tiebreakers don't fall their way, if, say Michigan. I'm not really sure how it would all work if
do we pay Rece extra for tiebreakers this year?
Yeah,
I feel like she needs a Christmas bonus.
We're going to have a lot. Yeah. I mean, they would obviously have head-to-head over Oregon, Michigan, so maybe I can figure it out right here in my head. Oregon, Michigan, they don't play Ohio State. So then that would throw it into the one-loss tie, because this only becomes an issue if Michigan beats Ohio State. Yes. But SC is going to have a case.
Yeah.
Maybe not the strongest one, but if they win at Oregon, if they beat Iowa, loss, that late loss to Illinois will haunt them if they're just on the wrong side of the cut line. That will haunt them if it happens. But they've got a chance here. They've got a chance. Michigan's got a chance, to be the fourth team from the Big Ten, and Oregon Oregon dodged one a little bit last week coming out of Iowa City, because all of a sudden, with the finish they have, and they're still in harm's way in my judgment. They have Minnesota this week, but they've got SC, who I think is capable, and they go to Washington despite that absolute egg that Washington laid. They're capable.
Did you watch the end of that game?
You know what? I haven't gone back to watch the end of the
No, that's
game
fine.
yet.
It was just like, no, that's okay. That's okay. That's really not going to impact your, your hosting. I just happened to be like a weird start. It was on FS1, and I ended up watching the last 4 or 5 minutes of it because it didn't overlap with another ending when I was on the plane. And there was just like 500 shirtless Wisconsin students like whipping their shirt in the rain. And then it was just sort of like, college football, you're great. You know what I mean? It was an awful game. The strength coach at Wisconsin, Brady Collins, hugged Luke Fickell like they won the Super Bowl. And it was just sort of like, you just feel good, right? All these guys are practicing just as much and just as hard as Ohio State and Texas A&M and whoever, right? So it was just kind of a neat moment. And then they did a re-jump around on the field after they stormed it after the game. And it was just kind of fun and cheeky, the kind of thing you would like.
Have you noticed the Have you noticed the disparity? Wisconsin plays Indiana this week.
Yes,
not going to go well for them. Indiana leads the nation in scoring, 44.5 points per game. Yep. If I did the math right, Wisconsin has scored a grand total cumulatively of 40 points in 6 Big Ten games this season. Indiana averages more per game, not just in Big Ten play, that's overall, but it's a fun point to make. They average more than Wisconsin scored all year in conference play. And Wisconsin has yet to score 44 points in any game this season, and they haven't scored more than 14 against a Power 4 team. They ran a kickoff back against Alabama to give them 14. They threw in a touchdown, you scored an early one against Michigan. But I had the stat a few weeks ago that I went back and looked at when they scored. They hadn't scored an offensive touchdown or something like that when the game was within, when the game was within 3 touchdowns until recently. So, that's not going to go well for them on Saturday. Yeah. Good for them to get that win last week, because that's not going to go well this week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if, they obviously went from Air Raid to Jeff Grimes, which is like a huge culture shift offensively.
And the right shift.
Correct.
For them,
no,
I think Jeff's a good coach.
Yes, no.
I think Jeff's a good running
game
coach.
They lost a tackle in spring. They've been banged up on the offensive line. Their center's been out a bunch. Like, it's just, if you're going to establish that bruising identity, you need actual people who can move the ball at the point of attack. And they've struggled to do that.
I would like to see them succeed, not because we root. I would like to see them succeed because they're showing some patience.
Yeah.
Now, they may be showing patience because of financial reasons. They might be showing patience because of the competition in the job market. All of those are fair critiques, but they are showing patience nonetheless. Yeah. And I'd like to see Fickell have success. I like Jeff Grimes too, so I'd like to see him have success. And it's fun when Wisconsin is,
it's a
at the
place.
very least sneaky and kind of a pain in the butt place to play. All of that, formidable. Yeah, sure. And a threat, and they have, in fairly recent history, a lot of Rose Bowl trips on their resume. So, you want to see them be better than they've been.
When we saw the Cincinnati people in Salt Lake City for game day, John Cunningham, the AD there, was the AD when they went to the playoff. And he was just like, that guy's a really good football coach. I've done this for a long. You know what I mean? Like, Luke Fickell didn't become a bad coach. Now, he has not done a good job. Like, the results are the results. I'm not that. But I just think Chris McIntosh looked at what he has in a coach and what he believed in when he hired him, and then looked at the $25 million bar tab that would come with firing him, and then the landscape of who he could hire. And I think he said, you know what, this guy can do it. We need to support him better. That was where that ended up. Speaking of bar tabs, Rece, what do you think of our friend Dan's story on LSU? On LSU, the unfiring of Brian Kelly.
Oh, the unfiring of Brian Kelly.
The expected unfiring. The alleged expected unfiring revealed in a legal document to then fire him for cause.
I just don't think this is the way to go about this, because it's one of those things that you want to go away. Once you make the decision, make it go away. And instead, you think he's just going to walk away and leave this money on the table without fighting back? You know him, and it's like, I just think that this is one of the things that you need to make go away.
Yeah.
And pay him his money, come to an agreement, do something, move on. Because I think it hurts. I mean, every coach thinks they can fix everything if they really want the job. And I'm not sitting here trying to say that LSU is not going to get a really good candidate or really good coach when they hire somebody. But you really want this thing to be that ugly again? You know?
In the long history of schools trying to weasel out of contracts they signed, and that's what this is. It is a straight weaseling, right? They didn't give the 7-day notice. They didn't. If you read the legal document, it's actually like you laugh because you're like, wow, they really, if they wanted to fire him for cause, they messed it up in every possible way. Public announcement. The governor, I think, said on Pat's show, we have a $53 million debt. Like, they acknowledged it all. So it's like, it's like in, when you're playing on the playground in junior high, it's like they tried to do a take back, do over, right? Why would you do over firing to do it? But there, Beal met Arkansas. Remember, Arkansas tried to weasel out of the money. Ollie at UConn. Brannon at Cincinnati. Like, everyone who has tried to do this legally has generally failed. There's been some settlements because they realized what they did, but the contract's the contract. You signed the bad contract. And my understanding is this is now all politically motivated. That may shock you, Rece.
No way.
The athletic director, interim Verge Oscar, is sitting there being like, no, let's try to, no, people in athletics know the score here. So there's been a pretty resounding chorus of laughter towards the governor's mansion and the board people trying to be cute and do this, and it will not work. And I think they'll eventually realize that. I think they hear that the sport is laughing at them right now, and it's not going to work. So we'll see. But they never. You keep
pushing this, and it may cost them more because then in this litigious society that we have, you don't think that if he feels like this is materially damaging his opportunity to go on, that it can be, they're saying they're firing me for cause. They don't have cause, and then maybe there are more lawsuits to come. Yeah. Would that really be stunning? No.
I'll put a bow on it with this. Like, the governor's grandstanding, he was like, well, we are not going to give these big guaranteed money contracts. Well, if you showcase your school as the least stable, most dysfunctional school in college athletics, guess what you're going to have to do to hire a coach? You're going to have to give him a big, long contract with a big gob of guaranteed money. And you have just given a 10-day infomercial, 2-week infomercial of your instability and the need for that guaranteed money. And the fact that you're trying to take guaranteed money from people is not exactly a resounding advertisement. Now, look, a good coach is going to take that job because it's a good job. I'm not going over dramatic and saying they're going to do that. But could it scare a top candidate to an equal job? Like, it's certainly going to be in the decision-making calculus at this point. So,
has it? From what you've been able to ascertain, has it impacted Lane Kiffin's thinking yet about whether he – and look, I think staying at Ole Miss is on the table. Certainly going to Florida is on the table. Fun that they play on Saturday, Ole Miss in Florida. And then I think it's probably no big secret that LSU would like to get into that mix. You've been able to ascertain whether it's impacted his thinking at all?
I think all three of those options are on the table for Lane Kiffin now. And I don't know if crazy scares Lane, like he's
objection sustained, counselor. Very good point.
But I do think, I do think that we've talked about it on this, and we've probably talked about it a month ago. So it's like the timing of all this is going to be the most compelling off-field theater of this carousel. He has a playoff team. They are pretty much, secured of that, unless they'll have to flat blow it because they have it's an uphill battle even with one conference loss to get into the SEC championship game because of their opponents' records, depending on what the tie is. But it seems likely that unless a couple of teams in front of them crash out, if Alabama and Georgia end up falling behind them with 2 losses, then that changes things. But if they have the multi-team 1-loss tie, doesn't really favor them or Texas A&M against the other presumed 1-loss candidates. So they're going to go to the clubhouse in all likelihood with 1 loss, a guaranteed home game in the playoff, and probably be better or near guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed until selection day, but a highly likely home playoff game and just be happy as can be. I would think. So that's a fascinating concept, the home playoff game. And I don't think there's been any decision made or anything like that yet. But if Lane Kiffin, by the time that home playoff game comes, has decided, and look, if he picks a school, a new destination, it would likely be late November, early December where that decision comes, right? And then they're probably not going to play in the SEC title game right now. Is that the way it looks?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's so much to be determined, but I mean, you start looking at the record of the opponents and all of that once you get down to the tiebreakers, because they haven't, they played Georgia and none of the other ones and all of that. At the moment, it doesn't favor them. Doesn't mean they can't, doesn't mean they won't. It's just that a multi-team tie, and obviously that depends on who it is, but the most likely multi-team ties really don't favor them.
Okay, yeah. So a long way to say, from November 29th when the season ends till December 19th or 20th when they would play a likely home playoff game is a very long period of time. And if he did decide to go somewhere else and informed his superiors of that decision, or one of these jobs just stayed open and it became pretty obvious that there was going to be something that happened there, Ole Miss would then have a decision of, do we let him coach, or do we say, hey, I mean, look, going to LSU, for example, they hate each other, right? You talk about that all the time. LSU and Ole Miss, like that is so could you have a home playoff game, this crowning moment for your program, where your coach has already decided to leave for another job? Like that's you could do it, but that's a pretty compelling theater. And then all of a sudden you get egos in the way at Ole Miss, right? Do you pick what's best to win the playoff game, which would be Lane Kiffin, or are you so mad that you say, hey, you know what, we're gonna let Pete Golding, Charlie Weiss Jr., Joe Judge, they're going to coach the team, be the head coach of the team, and we're going to try to go do what we can. So all of that, Rece, is going to be, that is going to be a lot to handle and pin down here in the next 6 weeks.
I'm probably getting out over my skis here just for the Ole Miss championship game, and there might be a different way, but the way it looks to me right now, what they need is Alabama to lose out. They need Texas to beat Georgia, to get Georgia out of the way, give them their second conference loss. And then I don't know if they would need, I'd have to look at the numbers deeper. I don't know if they would need Texas to win again, or if they would need then A&M to beat Texas, get them out of the way, and then Ole Miss would be left as the only one-loss team. I think that might be it. And Georgia's going to the clubhouse after this week too. Georgia's they're going to play their final conference game against Texas, and then that'll be it. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. It will not be
ready
boring.
to make some picks.
It will not be boring these next couple weeks. I'm ready to make some.
And Ole Miss fans, that's not necessarily exhaustive. There are probably some other combinations and permutations that might fall the Rebels' way. But that's the thing, is that the other games also impact, because you start looking at the opponents that you've played in their conference win record if you get down to that tiebreaker. And there could be some other scenarios where it's not that tiebreaker. And look, by the way, Lane Kiffin's never beaten Florida. I imagine that changes on Saturday. But, he once proclaimed he was going to sing Rocky Top all night long after beating Florida. That changed a different tune. Let's see if they can do Hotty Toddy all night long. After finally beating the Gators.
How about DJ Lagway being shaky as a potential starter? Things we didn't expect in August, huh? Billy Gonzalez said this week he's starting the week as QB1, but man. What
do you think happens here? Think he sticks around with the new coach? All depends on who the new coach is.
Yeah, I think it all depends. You wonder what the contract is at a certain point, right? 'Cause sometimes these guys with front loading got locked up. And then, Nick Saban would tell you the contracts don't matter. But we're going to learn if they do, I think, in this cycle, right? But does a new coach want to come in? I mean, a lot of these new coaches are going to come in with package deals, right? Like the assumption is if Eric Morris goes somewhere, he brings Drew Mestemaker with him if it's a good situation for Mestemaker. They just generally look at what Utah did with the OC hire last year. Tyson Helton at Western Kentucky actually sort of invented this technique and has really almost perfected it. He did it with Maverick McIver and Rick Bowie this year. We did with Bailey Zappi and Ben Arbuckle. He's done. That is the surest way to immediate contention. Now, Sig didn't do it with the quarterback because he found him, but he did it with 13 other Dukes, I think it was. It was a big number of Dukes. So
I want to say it was more than that. I think it might have ended up being 19 that stuck, wasn't it? Was it that many? And the first year?
Yeah, it was a lot. It was
it was a bunch. Whatever it was a bunch of them. And some are still there, forming the sort of the core culture of that team.
It was a lot. But I would think that Lagway, if he went to market, would have a robust market because there is a lot. There is a lot of talent there, and I think his quarterback development was really stunted by injuries. But I do think there's a lot of raw talent there, and he's been banged up this year too. So it'll be interesting because he's he certainly. I had scouts tell me this summer they thought he would be the top quarterback prospect for the his first draft eligible draft, but it is not synced up this year, Rece. It is not synced up.
Not yet. Let's make a six-pack of picks.
Yeah, let's do it.
Say? All right, let's do it. Let's start with the game where College Game Day will be, Notre Dame and Pittsburgh. And that line has gotten pretty lofty. We checked it as 11.5. Game comes on the 50th anniversary of Tony Dorsett going for 303 against Notre Dame. Although I went back and looked at the game story from that one. Matt Cavanaugh vultured a couple of touchdowns from him from the one there at the end. I think 303 and only one touchdown, I think. That's neither here nor there. You've got a great Pittsburgh rush defense against Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and the Notre Dame offense. What do you think of this game?
Did Bino ever regale you with stories about that game?
Always.
Oh, really?
Always. Bino had a story for just about everything, man. He was the best. If some of the younger listeners, Bino Cook was a legendary figure in Pittsburgh football and then worked at Notre Dame. He was like one of the original guys on College Game Day. And even into my early days in the studio, Bino lived in a hotel in Pittsburgh, and he would pop in. And he would go to a studio close to where he lived, and he would pop in and he would do a segment on college football final at the end of the night. And then afterwards, invariably, when I would come back upstairs to my cubicle at the time, and it shows you this is like 1999, 2000, something like that, the red message light would be on. I would pick it up, and Bino, who Fowler does a really good Bino. I think I'm fairly close, but you'd have this message that sounded like, "Oh, call me as soon as you get this. I don't think that was very good." And then we'd call, and then it's 2:00 in the morning already, and then I would sit there at my desk for an hour talking to Bino. But I cherish those times, man. He was an absolute legend. But enough down memory lane.
Yeah.
What happens in the future with Notre Dame and Pittsburgh?
I think it's a grinded out kind of nasty Steel City day, and Notre Dame has enough push to win. I think this game will be remembered as the matchup of two of the more promising quarterbacks in all of college football. Everyone on the pod knows what I think of Mason Heinschel. CJ Carr has been electric this year. I mean, he could not have transitioned smoother or easier. If you think about all the quarterbacks we expected to make that transition, it didn't. I don't think there'll be a lot of points. I'm not going to bet against Jeremiah Love. So we're going to say the Irish, but just by field goal.
I'm going. Oh, so you're saying Pittsburgh covers?
I do. Yeah.
If it's 11.5, I would tend to agree with you. I don't think it's going to be that close. I think Notre Dame's defense has improved from what we saw early in the season. I think there will be a lot of emotion on Pittsburgh's side. I also think that there is the possibility, not that Notre Dame wouldn't be locked in, given the fact that they have no margin for error, but if they weren't, then Narduzzi probably made sure of it by sort of saying the game doesn't matter. Oh, you think it doesn't matter? Let me show you what matters. I think Notre Dame wins the game because they're the better team. But young quarterback against Narduzzi's defense and the pressure that they can create and the fact that they can stop the run does give me a little bit of pause. This is a dangerous situation if Notre Dame either squanders opportunities or gives up a bunch of negative plays early, whether sacks or turnovers. I would watch early to see how quickly CJ gets settled in between what will be an inspired defense and one that is always creative in getting to the quarterback. I'm going to take Notre Dame to win the game. But I do think it is a real danger spot for the Irish. But should be great theater. It's at noon on ABC, immediately following College Game Day. Saturday afternoon, we talked a little bit about what's in front of the Trojans. Iowa coming to town off of that heartbreaking loss against Oregon. Weather doubtless will be better in Southern California. Who do you got, Hawkeyes or the Trojans?
So I'm going to take Iowa in the upset, Rece. I think they can go in and on a sunny Southern California day and bully them around, and I think they have shown just enough verve on offense to move the ball. So I am going to go with the bully against USC until proven otherwise.
I agree with you that the offense is proven. The early, I remember watching, I think it was Iowa Rutgers, but I remember watching a game early on a Friday night, and Gronowski had a couple of like wide open guys, and like literally the ball needed to travel no more than 10 yards in the air, and dirt ball, airmail, and you're like, what in the world? He's always been tough and always been a really good runner. He settled in. He made some good throws in horrible conditions on Saturday against Oregon. I think Iowa's a really good team, and I don't think they have enough firepower to beat SC. I think SC at home. I think they'll Makai Lemon. Oh, yeah. Another. I raved on the pod on Monday about Cam Coleman from Auburn as maybe a receiver that people aren't. I'm sure scouts are, but the people aren't noticing enough. So is Makai Lemon. He was sensational last week against Northwestern. Really has been all year. I'll go with the Trojans to win that game. Saturday afternoon in Tuscaloosa, there are two SEC games of humongous importance. The first one will be at 3:30 Eastern from Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Oklahoma and Alabama, the Sooners and the Crimson Tide haven't played a lot over the years. The only time they've played in Tuscaloosa, Oklahoma won. It was back in the Mike Shula era. The most recent time they played, Oklahoma won, throttling Alabama and basically wrecking their playoff hopes last year by taking them apart in Norman. And now here comes this Oklahoma defense, able to create negative plays. Alabama struggles to run the ball. You can make them one-dimensional. Although when I think of Alabama right now, I think of the quote from Mike Leach, Pete. 50% run and 50% pass. Well, trying to do that's 100% stupid. It's like move the ball any way you can. And for Alabama, that's moving the ball through the air. Now, can they protect the quarterback? Can they avoid the negative plays? They've been good at that this year. Greg McElroy telling me last night that their negative play percentage, as they define it, is not only better than last year, it's better than their goal for the season, despite the fact that they've had struggles running it. This defense from Oklahoma can really do a lot of damage for you. Who do you like? You like the Tide or the Sooners?
Hasn't Ty Simpson had a bit of a fumbling problem recently?
He has lost 4 fumbles this year, and he's lost one in each of their last 4 games. I don't know if it's I wouldn't know if it's a loose with the ball problem. Yeah. It is probably a protection problem. I think most of them, in talking to people there, most of them have been holding the ball a little bit and letting plays develop, saying pretty much the one against LSU is pretty much what's happened. Hit from the backside, late deep in the pocket, that kind of thing. And I don't think he's been loose with the ball, and he hasn't fumbled it. Maybe he has, but I don't remember him fumbling it, running with it or anything. He hasn't run a lot, but he hasn't turned the ball over through the air very often, only once. Yeah. But he's fumbled 4 times, which is tied for the most in the nation.
Yes. Yeah, you better be chipping our Mason Thomas there, because he's a game wrecker, an actual game wrecker. I like the Tide here. I just think they probably don't get enough credit for how low they were after week 1. Just remember the shock and awe coming out of Tallahassee and the ability to build and grow, find an identity. I give Grubb a lot of credit. He's done an excellent job. So I think that they will push on here and handle the Sooners. It is interesting that Mateer's kind of getting healthy now. And he's running more there. Yeah, I think they were a little hesitant to run in because you don't want to expose the hand, right? The hand's a hard thing to protect. So, I think it'll be kind of a wild, fun game, probably a little higher scoring, but I like the Tide.
You really see. I think the opposite. I think it's going to be relatively low scoring. McElroy, I thought McElroy might have been a little aggressive. He thinks it might be 1st to 20. He's hoping for more because he's calling the game.
Sure.
But I will say, these are 2 of the top 15 scoring defenses in the country. Oklahoma's only giving up 14 points per game. Alabama just 17. I think Alabama gets gashed, it seems, a little bit more than Oklahoma does, particularly in the running game. Your point about Mateer is a really good one. He had a season-high 80 yards rushing against Tennessee. Now they've had another week off. How much will he run? I dug this up because it's not so much that Alabama gets consistently run on, it's the big runs. They're 101st in the country in allowing runs of 20 yards or longer, and 113th in runs of 30 yards or longer. So can they handle the big play?
Has anyone found Jaden Ott, or is he just lost forever?
I'd forgotten until you said that. I mean, I'm being a little facetious. I'd forgotten he was with them.
Yeah, that's too bad.
It really is.
He's very the best running back in the Pac-12 in that league's last year. No, it just hasn't.
2 years ago.
Hasn't worked. That's too bad.
Yeah, I'm going to say Alabama pulls it out. You keep living on the edge as the tide has. Sooner or later, it's going to get you. But I think they'll barely pull it out with a lot of scares. I imagine Mateer makes some big plays, and it'll be a classic slugfest. I think 24 wins the game. Okay. I think if somebody gets to 24, I think they'll win the game. Texas and Georgia in prime time. The one thing Texas hasn't proven in the SEC is that they can handle the dogs. Georgia was the more physical team, particularly in the regular season meeting last year. And then in the SEC championship games, last year they made the tough-minded plays when they had to. Georgia doesn't rush the passer the way it has in the past. Texas hasn't been as efficient on offense over the course of the season, though there have been signs of life recently. Texas has won 4 in a row, the last 3 of them by 7 points or fewer. They've also allowed 30 points in back-to-back games. I feel like the Dogs are ascending a little bit here. Who do you like in that game Saturday night?
See, I think this will be a low-scoring Tar Pit game, more so than the Oklahoma-Alabama game. Texas is this sort of like fascinating, wildly flawed, but still compelling, playoff contender. They have the number 2 rush defense in the country. They are really, really good up front. Georgia can run the ball well. They're not elite at it, but they can run the ball well. They're in the top 25. This is going to be conservative. This is going to be ball control. I don't see, Sark going in and letting Arch let it rip, right? So I think this just comes down to one of those games that Georgia has shown consistently they know how to win. And I think they do win, but I think this is like a 17-13 Teeth Nasher kind of game.
I think you'll get a little bit more. I think the games will be very similar. The game will be very similar to what we saw in the SEC championship game, which I think was decided in the 20s. That's the type of game I expect. Texas is in survival mode. They're kind of desperate. I do think if Texas can find a way to split these 2 games, absent any other loss, but split the 2 games against Georgia and Texas A&M, that they will have a really good case, assuming they play well and pass the football judgment. They'll have a really good case as a 3-loss at large team, maybe to sneak into the field. So I don't think it's an absolute playoff or bust game for Texas, though they will definitely be in harm's way and on the wrong side of the bubble at the moment, in all likelihood, if they don't win. Haven't seen enough from them to think they can go into Athens and win. And I also think Georgia's getting better. I think Georgia's doing what teams in this playoff era, what teams in this playoff era need to do, and that's like working things out over the course of the season and starting to play your best the later it goes. I don't think Georgia has reached its best yet, but you start to see things that are sort of trending in that direction. They run the ball when they need to put games away. The defense is getting clutch stops. Stockton's making a few more plays here and there down the field instead of it just being the screen game. So I'm going Georgia at home. I can't see Georgia losing 2 primetime games between the hedges in the same season with how much they have riding on this too. They're in great spot right now, but they still have Georgia Tech. And Tech's formidable, as the Dogs found out last year. I'll go with Georgia to win that game. Really important game in the American. USF made its way into the college football playoff rankings into the top 25. They've got Navy. Navy with only 1 loss. The Mids hoping to be able to get into that American championship game and maybe win their way into the playoff. Game is in Annapolis. Who do you like?
Well, the key thing here is going to be the health of Blake Horvath. He obviously was a bit of a surprise scratch at Notre Dame on Saturday. When I broke that story, it was made clear to me he had a really good chance of playing this week. We will see if that manifests itself. That would be something I'll be tracking closely this week. Brian Newberry's done an unbelievable job at Navy, and they have done a good job winning all of the games in the margins. When they have stepped up class, they've pretty consistently fallen behind. And I do feel like with, I won't say with what South Florida spent on their roster, because Alex Golish gets offended by that. What I will say is that they are stepping up at a class of talent. It'll be, can Navy drag him in the mud? I mean, contrast to styles is like so obvious, right? But I do think South Florida just has a little bit too much for Navy to overcome.
Why does he get offended when you say
so?
that?
I didn't say it. Jeff Traylor intimated it, and there was a clip that went around the interwebs, Rece, where Alex was none too pleased at that intimation.
I think that is I think that's a compliment. People say it about, I think it's evolved into it, especially for a place like South Florida. People say it about Texas Tech. I mean, to me, it's like we've invested wisely. Because if you think you can just go out, and look, it'll help if you go and spend more than everybody else. But if you think you can just go out and offer willy-nilly huge contracts and not have to put the team together, not have to vet the guys that you're paying, and you don't feel like they're going to fit in your style, then you're just throwing good money after bad. So to me, if you are successful after having spent on your roster, that's a compliment. You're allowed to do it now. It's not like the old days where you're saying, well, they have those guys because they had a bigger brown paper bag full of money than everybody else. If they,
McDonald's bag.
They hid down underneath an overpass or hid down at the tractor store and, went down and picked it up. Or, like the old story from the guy would sell a tractor for cash and then there's no trail and then you give the cash to the guy. That's not what we're doing anymore. We're running this like a business because it is, and it's a compliment. You invested wisely. You put money into the market, and you're getting a return on investment. You're getting your dividends.
Speaking of deep-pocketed boosters, after Kevin Plank at Maryland, our old friend Taylor Schwink, I believe, is the second biggest Maryland booster. Is that correct, Taylor?
Is that right? Let's get to Maryland. I'm going to pick USF to win the game. They've had trouble with Navy in the option, a lot of trouble historically with it. So I don't think
old
this
Todd
is going
Orlando
to be easy.
Calling plays on defense. T.O.
Yeah.
Old hand.
I actually tried to do a little digging yesterday on how he's done against the option. I don't have a definitive answer on that yet, but they'll have a tough time because this is also Drew Cronick's offensive system at Navy is not purely just the old school under center.
He's had some big passing games this year.
I think he's over 1,000 yards passing this year. Taylor Schwinker, old friend, is back producing the podcast. And before we go into the...
Did he fall asleep?
Into the deep...
He's not asleep.
So before we go into the deep cut, Taylor, you are so close as a Maryland fan to having a really good season. But all these late squandered leads, what are you and Kevin Plank going to do about that to try to get the Terps over the hump?
Oh boy, fellas, I'm still living. There was a time in my life where Maryland had a 20-0 lead over Washington, and I thought we're on the way to the playoff, boys. Here we go. The time is now. And obviously that did not bear any fruit. And they didn't just eat it in that one. The next two were equally as painful. Scott Van Pelt, probably the number 2 Maryland booster behind Kevin Plank, he said on his podcast that a certain program might have made its way to College Park for the first time had they won maybe one of those games. And clearly that didn't happen.
Well, you know what? That SVP and I were texting about that. I've forgotten which week it was, but I think there was a great chance
public knowledge
we would have been there for the Indiana game.
Has Game Day ever been there, Rece?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the ones that's on the list for having not been there. I'm pretty sure it is. Is that right, Taylor? You would know that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Do you want to know what other club the University of Maryland is not in? They've never been in the college football playoff top 25. One of 3 schools, along with Rutgers and Cal.
Wow.
That's tough.
Yeah, two teams got erased from that list this season. Texas Tech and Vanderbilt, both ranked for the first time, and since 2014.
It's the sign of a rough decade. Yeah, that's a sign of a rough decade. So who would you want your coach to be if it's not Mike Locksley next year, Taylor?
Oh my goodness, the gentleman at Southern Miss,
Charles Huff.
Charles Huff.
Good name.
Yeah. I'm definitely in on like taking a swing at a guy who I need a guy who's had success multiple levels, multiple places. I don't care if he was a king in high school football and he cleaned up in D2 and now he's having some modest success as a mid-level coordinator. Like, we just need to start taking shots, and if it's not working, bail, because that's sort of the era that we're in here. I want to throw something at you guys. So Mike Locksley, he has the number 1 defensive end currently committed to Maryland for next season, Zion Ely. And, it's sort of like his card he's hanging on to, like, keep me around for another year and this guy will come in. But I don't think we should do that, because we've been in this situation with Mike Locksley before. Mike Locksley, I don't remember what year it was, but Maryland fires Randy Edsall. Mike Locksley is a candidate for this job, and he has Dwayne Haskins in his back pocket. If Maryland decides to hire Mike Locksley, Dwayne Haskins becomes the quarterback at Maryland, and I think changes the trajectory of the program. They do not. He goes to Ohio State, and Maryland hires DJ Durkin. It's weird sliding door. I know you guys like a good what if.
I do like a good what if. That's a good one, Taylor.
Yeah.
But
there you go.
I'm looking at these and at their season. We've talked about the Washington game. They lost Nebraska by 3, UCLA by 3. Indiana smashed them. The Rutgers one is the 3 close losses early. You need to go 2-1 in those games, and you need to beat Rutgers. Look, I hope Locks hangs on. I mean, I'm a fan of him personally.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, and I would like to see him get a second year with this quarterback and then the recruits they have coming in. But I understand the frustration because he is. So I like to see another year to see if it works, because as someone once said, a phrase that I have adopted, they always used to say the grass isn't greener. Another way to say that is the grass is always browner someplace.
Yes.
It's always more burned and lacking water someplace. So you never know. But they've got to do better. They've got to stop losing close games. They can't squander games.
What are they, 5 in a row right now that they've lost, Taylor?
Yeah.
1-4, lost 5.
Yeah, 5 in a row.
Yeah.
I'm a UConn guy.
Oh, you
now,
are.
all right?
You've changed your allegiance, the Fighting Moors.
I've assimilated here. I live in Central Connecticut.
Did you pack the rent on Saturday?
I did. I almost did. We had a thing on the home front. Family stuff came up, but I was on track to at least tailgate. I've been to a game this season. So.
How's the scene there?
Let me ask you. It was. I'm going to tell you. I was listening to this game. I was listening to the game, driving back from the airport. The end of the game. Which, by the way, when you're driving in order to be safe, I was listening to 2 games. That's really hard to do. I was listening to one on my phone and one on the car radio.
What channel in Connecticut? What would you pull it on, or did you have it on XM?
No, it was not on XM. It was on the local station, the Connecticut station, and it was loud. Man, it was really loud.
It was packed.
Yeah, it was good. Which brings me to this before we get to the deep cut game. Jim Mora. I'm not trying to wish him away from the Huskies or anything, but I mean, he's winning at UConn. This is not basketball. This is not women's basketball. I mean, Pete, why is his name not out there in the front?
I think it's out there. I don't think it's at the top places, but I think it's out there in some of the West Coast jobs, and I think it will be out there because somebody needs to get hired at all these places. And if you look back at Jim Mora's UCLA tenure, like it's immaculate compared to the people who followed him. Couple 10s and a 9. Also, like 70,000 plus people in the Rose Bowl. Like, they were good and it mattered. And they have not been good.
Now they're trying to
get
out of the Rose Bowl.
Mattered. Yes, I did see that. That. Yeah. Paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Like, it's it's a way of the world. I guess the sweet money, from what I read at SoFi, is the big driver of that.
Yeah. But then they've got. I mean, look, I'm not a lawyer, but they've got a really long-term lease
correct.
with the Rose Bowl.
Correct. That is what I have read. So it will be very interesting. The Rose Bowl, like, people who cover like pro sports don't have any idea. Like, covering something like the Rose Bowl with, them being the obstructor in the BCS, that the sunset, like all the headaches the Rose Bowl has caused us over the years for some immaculate results. It's a beautiful place and the game is awesome, but it is that is a persnickety little operation there.
It's I enjoy going there. Because I enjoy the history and the nostalgia of it all, for sure. It's an interesting time. What if the same lawyers were representing Brian Kelly and the Rose Bowl?
The lawyers, they're the real winners in modern college football, Rece.
Tell me about your deep cut, the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State, just a few miles sort of down I-20 away from Kennesaw State.
Have you ever been to a game at Jacksonville State?
You know what? I have not.
Wow. I just thought with your Alabama ties that at
I
some point
have not.
You would have.
I've never even been there. It's a different part of the state.
I know.
I've been not far from it, driving between Birmingham and Atlanta, but I've never been to Jacksonville State.
All right. So we have, this is a deep cut now. 8 o'clock ESPNU Saturday night, undefeated in Conference USA, Kennesaw State, undefeated in Conference USA, Jacksonville State. 2 first-year coaches, Jerry Mack at Kennesaw, who came via the NFL. He was at Tennessee, and he'd been a head coach at FCS. He's had an interesting path. He's done a great job there. They're 7-2. They played Indiana better than half the Big Ten has. And then Jacksonville State, old friend Charles Kelly, Rece. I'm sure you've run across him in your
know Charles well
in your time there. He's an old hand. He's done a great job there. They're 6-3, 5-0 in Conference USA. Do you know who the OC is at Jacksonville State, Rece? Because I know you know him.
I can't. I remember reading this. I can't remember it.
It is.
Oh, is it? Is it? Trickett? Is it Clint Trickett?
Clint Trickett and Rick Trickett, and they are.
Yeah, and Rick's the O-line coach there, right?
Yes, and they
because. Yeah, there's that Florida State connection from when Charles was at Florida State.
Yeah, and they are 4th in the nation in rushing behind the father-son tandem of the Tricketts. So I will say the Tricketts roll, and Jacksonville State figures out a way to win at Jacksonville State on Saturday night.
And this is likely the first of 2 meetings.
Yes.
The high likelihood is they'll play again in the conference championship game. Yeah. I first met Charles Kelly when he was an assistant to Wayne Trawick at Central Phoenix City High School.
Wow.
When I was working local. I mean, so I've known Charles for
That's a long time.
A number of years. And I'm very happy he's getting a chance as head coach. Very happy for his success. Not that I'm not for Kennesaw State. What a great turnaround for them. Also, the Owls, a growing program and a growing university.
There's players near Kennesaw now. Like, there's players around there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And a great bounce back place too. Things don't work at Georgia. Good. Things don't work at Tech. Good. Auburn, good.
Yeah.
You can find your way to Kennesaw State.
Or you're from Atlanta, you go to, fill in the blank, pop back.
Yeah, wherever. I would just use those because of their proximity.
You go to NC State, doesn't work out, pop right back.
Yeah, come on back to Kennesaw. Go to Oregon, come back to Kennesaw. Great bounce back opportunities there.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Jack State also in this one, and then we'll see when we meet again. I'll take Jack State.
Okay, that is good. That'll be. I was going to say that'll be up in my $4.
Really?
Oh yeah, on Saturday night on the app. Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of light, right?
Yeah.
The night
8 o'clock, 2 undefeated
games.
Conference USA. I'm absolutely putting it in my $4. No question.
Okay.
No question.
All right.
Postseason implications on the line, Rece. Let's go.
Yeah. James Madison, App State too.
Yeah.
I know App State's not great this year, but
they're struggling.
Been a little bit of fly in the ointment for them over the years.
Oh no! I mean, I'm never going to just give an App State game to someone. You know what I mean? There's too much pride and tradition there for that. Old Dow Loggins needs a year or 2 to get his guys in.
Yeah, they'll get them going.
Oh yeah.
All right, Pete. It's great to talk to Taylor too,
Yeah.
even if we had to bring up some painful things.
Yeah, he was ready for it. He was.
He was.
If we see anything about his Oriole tweets, we know he can play the aggrieved fan very well. So.
Taylor, do you do that? Are you the aggrieved fan?
I guess I kind of am. I'm trying to. I think as a father now, you guys will appreciate. I've been mellowing a little bit,
nice.
Realizing what's important in life. But no, I'm definitely have some grievances, and I'm willing to air them at any time.
That's what fandom is, right? Short for fanatic.
You know what? That's the thing. I don't like people in our end of the industry to kind of look down on the fans who go crazy. Because if the fans didn't go crazy and become irrational sometimes, it's our job to, Pete, as you say, step back from the outrage. That's what we do. Try to lend some perspective.
Yeah.
The fans are under no moral obligation to do that.
Yeah.
They love their team.
Yes.
And that's why we get to do this, is because they love their team. Yes. They need to be mad when they lose.
If you're listening to the 54th minute of this podcast, you probably have some complicated emotions towards the team that you follow. And that's great. We welcome that. We welcome all the complicated emotions.
Now, the one thing I will say, it is also on the athletic directors and the presidents of universities and the governors of state to sometimes exercise a little restraint.
Fair.
At times.
Fair.
It's on them. Fans, no, have at it. Have fun. Safely, of course. We've had fun with this. Thanks for listening to the College Game Day Podcast. Download wherever you prefer to get your podcast or subscribe and never miss a single episode.